Hello, everybody, and thanks for watching the Ketogenic Fasting Project again. I am always trying to help people get to the information that can perhaps vastly improve their quality of life. If you think about it, just reading a book about food might very well change everything for you. I know I've hit some new improvements myself recently, probably some stuff worth its own video. But this is a book I've really wanted to get to for a while. I read it or listened to it on Audible probably a year ago, um, and it is one of the best books on the topic. And the more experience I have with the subject of diet, carnivore, zero carb, ketogenic, fasting, etc., zero carb, low carb, the more I appreciate this book because it puts the issue of fat right out there in the front. Um, as the story goes, Nina Teicholz had a job as a food critic, and she found herself eating a bunch of fatty foods in fancy restaurants, and she was really worried about gaining weight, and she wasn't. I think she actually was losing weight and feeling great, and so she started doing a lot of homework. Her work is in that regard is very similar to Gary Taubes. So they're both kind of on the same par when it comes to this. But her book is very well written, and the audio book is very well read. I'm not actually sure who reads it, but it's one of the better read audiobooks for sure. And her personality and force of nature kind of comes through in the writing. So I enjoyed it. I hope you'll enjoy it. I hope you'll check it out or read the hardcover or visit her website here, thebigfatsurprise.com. If you want to learn more, she does many interviews with people. So if you go on YouTube, you can find her. There's probably 100 interviews with her. So, and she's really good at speaking. So definitely check her out. So naturally, the point of the book is she finds out that fat's good for you, and of course, we're talking about animal fat or saturated fat. We're not talking about vegetable oils or seed oils or nut oils or trans fats or whatever, the artificial fats or the fats that we were told to eat in lieu of animal fat. So she goes through a litany of information she discovered, and she spends a lot of time discussing how we got to where we are. So it's very informative, and it also kind of really bolsters the concept that eating animal fat is good for you, and not just meat, but mankind has been seeking out fat. And when people were in situations where they had to eat really lean meat, they desperately wanted more fat. And in the case of people who are forced to live on rabbit, they quickly find out that rabbit does not have enough fat in it to sustain life. And the same is true of when you have to live on something like elk or horses or cattle or mules that have been starved. They're also too short on fat. So. Wow, I hope this slideshow comes out okay. I just got interrupted. We just had an earthquake, so uh, got thrown off there a little bit. But I was about to make the point that science will be the next religion to wither from corruption. I think when people realize how corrupt science is, just corrupted by money, corrupted by personal interests, corrupted by egos, people put it up on a pillar, and it just I always look at it, every time you hear someone say the science is settled, you oughta look at that with a cautionary eye. You ought to go out and read some studies for yourself, because many a times people will do a study and then they represent it, and other people go and look at it and go, well, I'm not seeing what you're seeing. Your data doesn't look the same to me. So you gotta not assume that some guy in a white lab coat is telling you the truth. Ansel Keys, the proverbial whipping boy. Everybody in the low carb ketogenic world loves to point out that he's kind of the progenitor of the modern deviation from a natural diet of animals. He had it in his head that saturated fat from animals was causing heart attacks, and he's kind of a bully. He was a government insider, and there were plenty of people that criticized his work, but somehow he kept shouting him down or whatever. He was insisting he was right. And by 1950, his healthy heart hypothesis and all that was being accepted. And by 1955, he was kind of retracting from it. It wasn't really standing behind it anymore. But like all great news, you get a headline one day, and then when they reprint the retraction, a week later, it's on page 12 below the fold. Nobody sees it. And here we are. This is, you know, that was in the 50s. This is 2018, and people are still dying from this guy's bad advice. He really cherry picked data. If you read about the 7 country study, he basically picked 7 countries that he had data on um, to fit his hypothesis rather than using the data from 27 countries that was available. So, and of course, they were coming out of World War II, which kind of threw things off. And you'll find out as well that he uh, he ignored things like the practice of fasting in Greece and stuff like that. So, wasn't very good science. It really wasn't. He was really more about stroking his own ego, apparently. He even made the cover of Time. Just and to some degree, you want to say that the media was complacent in all this. Where are the investigative reporters? Why aren't they talking to the opposition? Why is he on the cover? And you can see how far back this was. I'm not sure if I could see the date, but I don't see the date. But anyways, it was a while back because he passed away. I think this is 1963 or something up there. But anyways, the uh, the the disappointment in this is, the only reason why people believe this science is because they're believing it out of blind faith, and that's why it becomes a religion. People don't look into it for themselves. They don't peek behind the curtain. It's like all the people that, let's say they're Christian and they never read the Bible. It's like, well, it's a set of your faith or anyone else's faith who has a doctrine and doesn't read it. What can you say? Everybody suffers because fools like this come along. Nina Teicholz gets into beating up on Ansel Keys pretty good. She does a thorough job, but she also talks about the evidence. In fact, she starts out with the evidence. I did a video about Stephenson. The original title of the book was Not by Bread Alone, but there's a later version that came out called Fat of the Land. So, his evidence is very strong. As an anthropologist, he went and stayed with Inuits. In fact, these particular Inuits had never seen a white man before, and he lived with them, learned to hunt with them, live like them, and they basically ate meat. This whole concept that people are, we're hunter gatherers, and they're sort of gathering equal parts plant and animal just really isn't true. And Ansel Keys like to ignore that data as well. And I know it was in the textbooks when I was growing up. Everybody believed, oh, you're gonna eat a rabbit here and some berries there. You might eat a deer or a buffalo, but we've been brainwashed to think that a large portion of our diet should come from plants, and that animal fat's bad, and even animal protein's bad for you. And it's all a lie. It's just not true. And that's what this is about. Uh, Stephenson lived with the Inuits for a year on an all meat diet, and when he came back, nobody believed him. So they locked him in a hospital with his buddy, and they weren't. I believe it was Bellevue, and they weren't allowed to eat anything but meat. I think they could have like coffee and obviously water, but uh, people were shocked that these guys were healthy. And in fact, I think what was there was only one time he didn't feel good, and it was kind of funny why he ate something and it made him not feel good. But anyways, this whole idea that scurvy is caused from not eating fruits and vegetables. Well, if you go back and you read about Napoleon and his war efforts, they cured scurvy by eating horses. The Mongols lived on horses and milk paste. And the Inuits, the Plains Indians, and the Indians of the Southwest, they basically hunted buffalo. They lived off of buffalo. They got almost everything from the buffalo. They didn't eat other things because they didn't need other things. She also talks about studies in deficiency uh, by Robert McCarranson, and I think I even forgot when I did my video. The point that McCarranson discovered was that um, you could get your fat from milk and butter and cheese and stuff like that. The most robust populations in India were those who ate a lot of dairy products. There's not a lot of meat eating. They did eat meat, but meat wasn't as consumed as those, and they were healthier and more robust than the other people. And it's obvious from his book that if you lived on white bread and rice and stuff like that, that you were less healthy and you had all kinds of illnesses. So, she brings that up, and there's a number of other people that she mentions. Some of the names that she mentions I haven't been able to find yet, but they're frequently mentioned in a number of the books on the subject. So one of these days I will track them down and talk about them. In the interest of time, I'm going to wrap up this slideshow, but I really want to do a second one where I follow up on more of the research that she presents in the book. But if I did that in one video, people basically wouldn't like the fact that it would be so long. So one of the reasons why I do these videos and try and keep them short is to share the basic information with people who either don't have the time or don't have the inclination to listen to the full audio book or read the full book or whatever. And the longer I make them, the fewer people watch them or finish them. So, but anyways, this is a great book, and I definitely encourage anybody to read it because it's really well done, and there is a wealth of information in there. It really confronts the ideas that have been foisted upon us for a very long time. And I hope people stop being so comfortable with what people perceive to be science. I really think that a lot of people uh, blindly accept things as stated facts that really aren't facts. And the only way to really know if anything is true or not, or the only way to get close to it, is experiment on yourself and actually read studies, because sometimes the truth is in the study results, but it's not accurately presented. And Nina Teicholz lays out a long history of this back and forth battle with Ansel Keys kind of overshadowing the other research. But there's plenty of research that did not support his claims, including his own research, all the way up into the 80s. This continued, and now there's so much more research and there's so many more people working on it that it's pretty undeniable at this point that this low-fat idea, this whole healthy heart hypothesis, was a very, very bad idea. So, anyways, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. All that means is that you'll get a notification when I release a new video on YouTube. It doesn't cost anything. It's not really a hassle. It's just a heads up saying, hey, there's another video if you want to watch it. So it's not exactly a huge commitment, but it really helps me out. So I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.